Chafing Armor Podcast, Episode 56. The Cat, the Bird, and the Troll. Welcome back to the Chafing Armor Podcast. I'm your host and slightly sweaty Dungeon Master because I'm trying not to run the AC while I record, Michael Corley. And with me tonight, no doubt equally sweaty, is Lee. Lee, tell everyone who you will be playing.
Wow, this might be the first time I've actually ever been introduced first. Huh. Hey everybody, my name's Lee and I'll be playing Osukai the Shifter Ranger, who is currently a bush.
Yeah, I can just hear anyone who's seen Cool Hand Luke, I'm shaking the bush, boss! I'm shaking the bush! Just enjoy that reference if you've happened to see that movie.
Oh, does that mean you're playing Fortnite? You're sitting around being a bush?
I hate you. Go away.
Successful camouflage. Speaking of someone who can camouflage quite easily by ducking behind a chair, is Dare. Dare, tell everyone who you are playing.
Greetings, everyone. I am playing Tix Birchmanson, the gnome cleric who can apparently hide behind chairs.
It's a special ability that he has.
You heard it from the... hold on. You heard
sorry.
it from the DM right now, so that's canon. I can hide behind chairs.
Well, when you are... what is his height again?
He is 3'7".
3'7". That means that a medieval chair, a nice sized, chair for a banquet hall, he would totally be able to hide behind easily, with room to spare. But not hiding behind a chair, but instead giving us his glittering glow of glory is James. James, tell us who you are playing.
Hello, everyone. I am playing Penton Chalice, the spell scale sorcerer of renown, who is all gaga over a certain jeweler right now.
And we'll get more into that in a moment. But in order that I introduced you, we have leveled up. We actually, everyone leveled up when you defeated Punchy McBeardface, who I was telling everyone before the show was actually based on a pared down Roper, who is a terrifying beast who could easily destroy all of you. And while I absolutely did pare down the statistics to make it a little more on par for a level 4 party, not that much. So y'all did very, very well with that. That on top of all the role-playing you've been doing and the other villains you've defeated, you have achieved level 5! Fanfare right here. And again, in that order, let's start with Osukai. Tell us, Lee, what Osukai has achieved on his 5th level.
Alright, well, Osukai got a little bit more resilient, a little bit more intimidating, a little bit more silent, stealthy, and recalls some wisdom passed down to him from his tribe about certain types of beings from outside our plane.
Very interesting that you had picked that one. I can definitely tell the listeners that it was a complete coincidence that an outsider was at the end of last episode, and here is Favored Enemy. Outsider is listed for Osukai. So we will see if that comes in handy in the very near future. Also, we have our favorite healer. What has Tix gained upon level 5?
Tix has gained 10 hit points and a number of spells with his good domain and protection domain and his level up. So he received Holy Smite and Dispel Evil with his good domain, and Command Plants and Wall of Thorns with his protection domain. And his 2 third-level spells are Cure Serious Wounds and Blindness Deafness, which inflicts blindness or deafness, one or the other, on a target creature.
And do you have to know what their save is for that?
I believe it is a charisma check, or no, a constitution check.
Makes sense. Okay. Just checking in case that comes up in the very near future.
Hmm.
And also, speaking of spells aplenty, we have Penton. What has Penton wrought on his 5th level?
Well, he has gained about half a handful of hit points. Let's see. A couple of more second level spells. Just expanded his minor repertoire of sorcerer retinue. And he also doesn't need to eat or drink anything anymore.
As part of your vow of poverty, and that
Right.
even though you have found many wondrous items, you have not kept any of them for yourself, because that's not what you do, is adorn yourself with various gewgaws of magic and such.
Right. His connection with the dragon gods have made him to rise above such paltry needs as consuming anything.
Just think, people, he could walk into a Starbucks and be offered a free skinny vanilla latte with a banana nut loaf and just go, nah.
Meh.
So that is a true superpower.
I always thought of Penton as a hipster.
He's like, oh, well, he said, eating is so first century. But
I get all my nutrients from protein.
and all of that protein comes from being better than all of you. No, that is not Penton, but perhaps it will be one day. When we last left our characters, they had successfully battled Punchy McBeardface. They had been escorted by Kuris Vigilfist to meet the king. But one of our party member, Osokai, had separated to do a little hunting on his own. Penton and Tix and Morezi, though she's being rather silent at this time, have been offered to spend the night in the stronghold of the king and to meet him the following evening. And so you will all gain back your hit points and spells and all that good stuff and level up as well. While Osokai was out hunting, he encountered a troll, a female troll wearing a tiny chainmail bikini, who actually went to the outer gates and met a Rakasha, a demon, an outsider, a tiger-looking type demon with misshapen hands in a strange way, who had offered to bring her inside the city, saying that they have a special surprise for the king. Quickly, Osokai, what would you like to do when you saw all of that?
So this is the city we were headed to, or just left?
This is still Massgate. So this was on the outskirts of Massgate, where there is still a wall proper that is very lightly guarded, because there isn't any active threats against Massgate. At least not the kind that don't rain out of the sky or come crashing in from the docks.
Yeah, all the threats are inside Massgate.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to retain this information. Let's try and track them through the city.
Okay, go ahead and give me a stealth roll. And I am going to need to give you a -2. One, because you are trying to track them in a city that you are not... Well, you are somewhat familiar with the city, but also that you're trying to track them without really having excellent ways to hide. But instead of disadvantage, I'm just going to give you a -2.
Well, I also have my inspiration die from last time, so
you absolutely do.
See how this one works. Oh, that's nice. Okay, that's a total of 24.
24. Okay, so your rambling through the city throughout the last few weeks has served you well in that you've gotten a familiarity. You've also been off and on staying at the inn, where you gave that young tiefling 1,000 gold worth diamond, and she has allowed you to stay for free. You've been hearing lots of different things from different people. You've been listening to the songs sung by the bard Fugly, who frequents there. So you've just been kind of learning about the city, and so even though you're at a little disadvantage here, that all serves you in that a few critical moments where you might have misstepped, you're able to duck behind the proverbial cart and you're able to keep Chop silent. And what happens is both of them make a very, as you could imagine, a giant troll and a Rakasha can't walk through the city proper. So as soon as they get just a little way in, he casts some sort of spell, the type of spell you're somewhat familiar with. They both take on the seeming of completely ordinary but noble people. He looks like a rich nobleman, and she looks like just a wealthy noble woman, but relatively conservative, not like big lavish, attention getting. And you actually hear him say something like, "Don't draw attention to yourself." And he begins taking them through the city. And eventually, they make their way to the gates that you would have refused to go into earlier, as they make their way to the stronghold of the king. And he signals, and the guard recognizes him. So you don't know if this is his usual guise, or if he's actually taken on the guise of someone who is known. You don't recognize him at all. But they recognize him, and they open the gates for him. What would you like to do?
I'm gonna send Chop into track.
Okay. If he goes in after them, he's going to be walking in through a main city gate. So they're probably going to see a big old boar if he goes walking in there. Well, what I'm saying is this isn't like the main thoroughfare of like merchants and everything. This is the gate that opens to the inner sanctum area, to the stronghold of the king. So the guards are kind of paying attention. So if he just goes in after him, there's a really good chance they'll notice.
I reckon he can pull it off.
Okay, go for it. I'll let you roll if you want.
All right, go get him, Chop. All right, that's a 19 on the die.
19. So you're not quite sure how he does it.
Tippy toes.
Tippy
Gets up on his hind legs and tiptoes through.
What he actually does is he goes over to one of the guards and actually, with his tusk, he actually pokes him in the back of the leg. And the guards have armor that is mostly in the front, and the back of the calf is actually unprotected, and the guard goes, "Oh!" And he turns around to the other guard, and while he does that, the pig just goes inside. And it's another indication to you that Chop, you do not think has full human intelligence. But he's clearly, as we said before, is smarter than the average bear. He's clearly smarter than the average boar. That he has some level of intelligence that's somewhere above that. And he makes his way in, and he's inside now, tracking them.
All right. I will hold back a little bit until all the rest of it until everything has quietened down a little, only a few moments. And then I will walk up to the gates and tell them who I am, and who I was with. And hopefully they actually have the information that is required that will allow me in. And on my way, I will also ask, so can I ask who that was who just went in before me?
Oh, why, yes. That is the advisor to the king.
Interesting. Thank you. I just, something draws me to them. I mean, he's a very interesting man. But I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Very, very interesting indeed. His name is Irtok.
Lord Baron.
Oh,
yeah. Osakai will definitely. Is he a noble? Does he own land? It's just interesting that a man who looks so nondescript could be the advisor to the king.
Well, honestly, I have never heard of his lands. He kind of looks at the other guard who's still like kind of rubbing his calf, and he says, he asks him the question, and he's like, "Yeah, you're right. I've never heard of the lands that he owns or the property that he has, but he is, we've seen him with the king many times. He is the advisor to the king."
Interesting. Do you know of his companion?
No, we don't know who that is. Or at least I don't. And again, he points to his, the other guy, and he's like, nope. There's been a lot of people coming in a lot. The word is there's going to be some really interesting delegates coming in tonight. So we're all we're all tip-top and, keeping our sharp lookout. And as they do, you literally see Chop just slip past the door as they go into the inner stronghold. He's like, nothing's getting past us. And you just hear like this little, this even though it is a bad idea, this little, almost like a laugh. He says to you, well, hold here and we will confirm that what you say is true. My understanding is that Grand Duke Vigilfist is preparing for the evening, but we can verify this very quickly.
I understand. I appreciate your time in this matter.
Well, your politeness doesn't require a roll because, honestly, it's not hard to verify. And actually, what happens is 2 of the compatriots come out to verify you. There were 5 who were underneath Grand Duke Cluris Vigilfist, and 2 of them come out, and they are the most serious-looking half-elves you have ever seen. Like, imagine the stereotype of, like, the Secret Service agents. You don't know, like somehow they're giving the impression they're wearing sunglasses when they aren't. And they're just in very conservative, very matter-of-fact clothing, and they come up to you and they say, the man says, excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't believe we introduced ourselves at the time. My name is Dayoka. This is my associate, Drench. And the woman now nods slightly. And then they both, without slightest pause, both say in unison, no relation. And Dayoka
They get that a
says,
lot?
the truth is they look like twins. They look like male and female twins. They look just like each other, but they continuously tell anyone who asks that they are not related.
They're related. If you have to tell somebody you're not something, yeah.
You probably are. But they offer to bring you inside, and they offer you a room and refreshments, and they say that tomorrow you will have a chance to meet with the king and his retinue.
Sakai will politely dip his head in the only real expression of deference he ever actually has, and we'll politely thank the guards at the gate and say, "Stellar work, boys."
Yep. They wouldn't miss a boar if it came walking through. So Tix and Pinton.
Yes.
Questions. You are both offered separate rooms. Would you all like separate rooms or together?
Oh, it's fine. Either's fine by me.
That's fine. I'll take my own room.
Okay.
Pinton, would you... Skull was actually brought with the party as part of everything that went
Right.
down.
I'd like to think I was guiding her by, the arm, even though she doesn't need it, just, out of, gentlemanly courtesy.
She absolutely accepts it and is just kind of chatting away with you. And as you two are talking, you are actually approached by the wizard that Tix had healed, the one who had been very badly injured. Shellenshuk, who is a young elf male.
Gesundheit.
He says, hello, it is I, the Shellenshuk. Pleasure to make your acquaintance once again.
Oh, and you as well, sir. I
I
hope you're feeling better.
Thank you. Thanks to the ministrations of your wonderful, wonderful cleric, I'm very much on the end. He is still injured. You can see the burns on his face and such, but he's, it looks more like a really bad sunburn as opposed to near death. He says, if I might have a moment of your two time, two skilled practitioners of the arts of magic as both of you, I actually have a question I'd like to ask you.
Oh, by all means.
Oh, and he's,
Skull, okay by you?
May we go into your room, Mr. It's Pinton, is it not?
Yes.
And they make their way in, and the room is just lavish. Just think about, your really nice hotel room, and medieval it up, and that's what you got going on in here.
Okay.
And there's actually a very small table and chairs where you all sit down, and he makes his various pleasantries and talks just a very brief bit about adventuring with Vigil Fist and what a absolute pleasure it is, and how they defend Massgate against incursions and so forth. and he says, I have a question to ask you. Have you ever heard of a book? It is a book of magic, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It is titled Of the Onyx. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
I don't believe I have. Let me think for a moment while I roll my knowledge arcana to see if anything pops up in the back of my head about that. It doesn't. It doesn't.
And it is
7 and 5. It's a 12. So
12. And you may have heard something in passing, but it just nothing comes up. And Skull also is like just kind of nodding to herself, and she's just like, no, nothing like that comes to mind. And she kind of you get like this kind of like slightly sad look on her face. She goes, I don't read a lot. And you think to yourself that, like, even with her incredible enhanced abilities, her ability to see, like, almost as a bat, with her necklace that gives her an advanced other senses, she still can't read. And that must be very frustrating to one who is magical. In fact, you're thinking to yourself, well, if she's a wizard, which she might be, like, how does she read her spell book? You don't actually know. But like she seems a little dejected when this comes up for just a moment, and
we'll have to spend some time reading later.
She nods to you. He says, "Well, think nothing of it. I have traveled some small bit with Vigil Fist, and this book of the Onyx, it was translated originally from Draconian. It was said to be penned by one of the Platinum Dragons."
Oh, okay.
I do not mean to be prejudicing or anything of the sort. He gestures towards your, glittering scale-like skin.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. I'm quite proud of my heritage.
It's fascinating. But if you ever come across that, if you could acquire it for me, I simply want you to know that I would see that you are very well compensated. It is a book that my family has been looking for many generations, and I myself have made it a bit of a life work over the last few 100 years.
Oh, well, I'll certainly keep a lookout.
Well, I thank you very much for your time, and thank your friend again. When I get the chance, of course, I will do the same. And he excuses himself, and you find yourself in your room with Skull, and she says, so do you have much reading material?
Actually, I really don't carry much with me, but I'm sure this place has a library.
Oh, well, perhaps we could find the library, and you could, I have a penchant for knowledge of ores and mining and the history of deep places. Perhaps we could find something like that.
Oh, let's. That sounds like a joy.
Absolutely. And so you eschew your normal resting for the evening and make your way. And Tix, you actually find yourself in your room when there is a knock on your door. Oh, very nice Foley work, by the way.
Thank you.
I walk over to the door and ask, "Who is it?"
A very gruff voice says, "Kroros."
I open the door with my hand on my axe.
Okay. It is actually the 5th member of Vigil Fist's party, and he is a dwarf. He is a dwarf male, and he's dressed all in leather. And you get the sense that perhaps he's the sort of fellow who is good at not being seen, shall we say? He says to you, well, first of all, I wanted to let you know, wanted to thank you for, healing up Skeleton Shuck and Vigil Fist too, but especially Skeleton Shuck. He's a good kid, and he gets a little over eager, doesn't know his own strength, and gets a little too close and gets banged up a little bit.
Well, that's a lesson he will learn after a while.
Yeah.
How did you fall in with this group?
Well, it was it's a long story, but bottom line was, Vigil Fist was doing a little traveling a few years back. This was before he became a official defender of Masquerade and all that crap. Well, I might have been trying to relieve him of certain important magical items. How that happens. Accidentally, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We got into a little fisticuffed, but turns out there was some goblins attacking the village nearby, and while we were in mid-battle, we broke off and both went and kind of kicked some goblin ass, and, well, we've been friends ever since. And I don't think he's ever noticed that I never returned all of his stuff to him.
He seems to be well aware of Vigil Iron Fist.
Well, yeah, he Vigil Fist knows himself quite well, and he does what he does pretty well, and we kind of let him do it because this is a pretty sweet gig, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you about. You might have noticed that we were out there, we're doing okay, and you don't know if okay is the right word or not for how they were doing. He goes, but we kind of light on healers. How's things going with that party you got going on there?
We seem to find enough business to keep us busy.
Don't make any decisions right now, but maybe we talk a little bit more later. But I've been telling Vigil that, hey, come on, we need somebody who can staunch a wound too, because we're all pretty good about dishing it out, but let's face it, if you hadn't have been there, we might have lost Skellenshuck, and I'm pretty fond of the kid. He's a good guy. He's a good egg.
Knowing when not to get into a battle would be important also.
I'm sorry,
Sorry,
what?
Is this Masquerade by way of New York?
Yeah. We suddenly made the way. We're heading down to Jersey, and we're gonna park the car pretty soon.
Hey, I'm walking here.
That's right. I got a lot of voices to do. I got to make some decisions. But he says, well, just think about it. Just think about it.
I'll keep that in mind. And what are the perks of this job?
First of all, the pay's good. You and I both done some adventuring, and you know how it is there. It's feast or famine. Really good or really bad. And here, you just got a steady income. You get gold coming in every month. And if you don't fight anything, you still got money coming in. And then normally what it is just some crazy guy comes in from the Sand Swallow Sea, or he comes in from the Northlands and decides that he's better than everybody else and starts, exploding magical stuff. And we just come and punch him till he stops moving. Pretty easy gig.
I've been in gigs like that before.
Well, just keep it in mind. Keep it in mind, because we definitely could use it.
It's an interesting offer. I will consider.
All right. Well, I'll see you tomorrow evening, and you take care. Speaking of payment, there is, as you close your door, you realize that you need to take care of someone who needs a little feeding. So take care of that. You make sure that they are fed and content and happy, and we'll get to that another time. But the night comes on the next day. You have all completely restored your spells and healing and all that good stuff. And even though Pinton, you actually didn't do a great deal of resting, you and Skull actually spent most of the next day reading in the library. And you were quite right that there is a massive library, and it's all lit with magical lights so that it's not in danger of fire. And you spent all evening with her face aglow by these fairy fires as you read from various tales of the Underdark and legends of creatures of magic and stone and onyx and so forth. And it was a very delightful day.
Excellent.
Since you don't require rest and relaxation the way other people do, I will actually say that you still recover all of your spells and ability.
Alrighty.
There is a sort of a fanfare that goes off in the distance, and you are all brought in. Does anyone want to take any offers to change or freshen up or anything like that?
Osakai will.
So will Tix.
You know what? I'm going to approach Shell and Shuck at some point during the day and see if he's got a spare robe he can spare, just for the occasion.
He laughs, and he does. He is an elf male, so he is fairly slender. But then again, so is Benton.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
practically elf size, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, is there a particular color or anything like that you would prefer?
Oh,
Orange.
Oh, no.
Puke
No,
orange.
no, goodness, no. I'm thinking like something like a silver, something, or something in the platinum range, just to kind of accentuate my penchants.
This elf, even though he is young, he's still several hundred years old, and he's collected a lot of robes. So you're able to get one, and he's even able to help you, both of you, doing little minor prestidigitation just to make it kind of fit you perfectly. And given the fact that your party had healed him, and given that you've also promised to help him look for the book of the Onyx, he's more than happy to donate this robe to the cause.
Fantastic.
Your old robe, once it's off you, it's almost like your prestidigitation magic. It's leaves it, and it's just like almost shrivels.
It falls apart like
Yeah.
the Bluesmobile at the end of the Blues Brothers. It just
exactly.
disassembles.
It's just that your magic holding it together at that point is, as they'll say, it's like just spitting tape and baling wire was all keeping it together. So, Osokai, what are you wearing when you come in? Or are you just taking a bath type thing?
Osukai's just going to take a bath. He's going to buff out some of his leather armor, make sure that it looks relatively okay, put some oil on it, borrow some oil from the guards, oil his leather up a little bit, make it look decently nice and clean. But Osokai really doesn't give a rat's fig about royalties or anything else like that. He understands the idea of presenting his best face, but at the same time, if royalty or monarchy doesn't approve of his looks, he doesn't care. Like, why bother? Like, I'm not here to impress you. This is form over function, or function over form. Come on.
Gotcha.
So yeah, he's cleaning up his armor, his leather, and making sure everything's in good nick, but he's not putting on it.
In this world, people understand that a ranger is not going to look spiffy, and there's a difference between just making yourself a little more presentable and, like, as you say, trying to put on airs and wearing fancy robes and such.
He'll even comb his hair and beard for you. Is that
Whoa.
Is that good enough?
Yes, the bone comb is just like cracking and breaking as you've worked your way through this, and you've had to reweave some of your bindings that you have in your beard.
I broke 4 combs.
Tix, is there anything else you want to do?
Tix will pair and make sure that his backpack and armor are safely stowed in his room while he puts on his clerical robes. And make sure that they are neat and tidy as is proper to meet the king.
By the way, no one asks y'all to not bear weapons, which is pretty weird. You were all just expecting it, and no one does. So if any of you want to have your weapons with you, your armor or whatever, you can. And you notice that Vigil Fist and his group all do have their weapons. Obviously, Vigil Fist, his weapons are his fists.
Are they wearing armor?
Sort of. Drench and Daoka both wear. They're essentially the only ones who wear armor are all wearing leather armor. And just like Vigil Fist, they all have armor that's just a little this side of ornamental. Like, it's kind of fancy, but it still does function as armor, but it's not quite as good as armor that if you were going to go and, throw down.
Before we enter the hall, I'd like to try and get my companions to confer with them about what I saw the previous night, to be aware of things. I'll let them know that when I went off to hunt, a troll made their way to the city and was greeted at the gate by a outsider, a Rakshasa, who mentioned something about a surprise for the king. And when we got inside the gates, he disguised himself as, and I will point him out if he is around, that man right there, the king's advisor. I can confirm this with the the guards at the front gate, who told me that was who he was. And I would assume that my party understands that Osukai might not say much and might be a bit of a tool sometimes, but he doesn't lie.
Does anyone have any questions to ask him or follow up to that?
Tix, having heard this, quietly excuses himself and goes back to his room to put his armor and backpack on under his clerical robe.
So you've got just a few minutes before that. You have to kind of hurry a little bit because they're all gathering for it. But you just make it back, and you're like, "Excuse me," and boom, and he's back there. There is a enormous trumpets, and before everyone that you see, there's a very large crowd. There's a huge assembly room, and there are multiple long tables in this room. There's tapestries all over the wall. There is actually a small throne at the end, but it's actually not occupied. Sitting at the longest and biggest table that is perpendicular to the other tables, so that all of the other tables are essentially facing him. You see the king. And the king is standing at a very ornate chair that you suspect he's going to be sitting in for a feast. You see that there's silverware and everything laid out at all the various tables. He is standing, and so everyone bows their head. Is anyone going to not bow? Just checking real quick.
Oh, definitely bow.
Osukai will not.
Okay.
Tix does a very shallow nod.
Okay.
But his diminutive height, he probably isn't noticed.
That's true. It does work in his favor in this case. And a herald comes out and says, "Announcing the king, the protector of the realm, lord of Hyboria, and master of all he surveys, King Tesvin." And there's just a huge cheer that goes up. You see a human. He's human. He's relatively young. You certainly tend to think of kings as being older. He's relatively young. He's thin. And there's something unusual about his eyes, but you actually can't make it out from here. He's wearing fur robes, long flowing fur robes, and he holds out his hands to everyone and he says, "Please, everyone, be at your ease." And that's kind of the cue, and everyone begins talking to everyone else, and there's a huge just murmur that goes through, and everyone seems to have permission to, go about their business.
Osukai is going to nudge Penton somewhat gently. He doesn't really do it very much. And indicate to, if the king's advisor is in the room anyway, sort of under his breath go, "He's got some kind of disguise spell or something. Can you do anything about that?"
Disguise spell? What did you say this thing was again?
It's an outsider. Would Osukai know exactly what kind of outsider, or?
You do, in fact.
Okay.
You know that this is a Rakasha, which is an outsider who came to this world, and it twisted them even more than they were already twisted. You know that they are very dangerous. You don't know the exact nature, but the rumor is that their touch or possibly their claws can actually cause nightmare, and that they are considered extremely dangerous.
I'll impart this information to Penton.
Would I have heard such a thing? Of such a thing?
I will actually say that Penton, given his knowledge of the Arcana, has certainly heard of Rakasha, but he's not super knowledgeable about them.
Okay. I feel like the disguising itself is kind of like a unnatural ability, not really a spell so much. So I'm not sure that I'd be really able to tell.
I will say that I don't believe trolls have the ability to disguise themselves like that.
Oh, trolls.
Partner...
Well, maybe the troll. Okay. Do you remember what the troll looked like when it was different?
Yes. Is his companion in the room somewhere? She's obviously
Yes.
nondescript.
So
but...
you do see Urtok is the Rakasha, and that is how
Yep.
the other ones know him, is Urtok. And he is, as you said, a nondescript nobleman who is to the king's right, is definitely at a place of honor at the long table, the longest table. And you do see that nondescript noblewoman next to him. You notice, now that you're looking for it, that there are kind of like some appetizers, on the table, and that she just grabs a handful and just shoves them in her mouth. And even Morezi eating Loft's crumpets could not shove that many things in her mouth at once.
I'll see if Penton noticed that and go, something.
Well, that's not normal.
Maybe have a look at that. I will.
Yeah, that's probably a troll. Yeah.
I'll also take a quick look around and see if Chop is around, since he should still be tracking them.
Mm-hmm. You see him? He there's of course, you don't see him at first because he's hiding, but you know him and you know what to look for, and then you see this great tapestry of a long dead king, and the long dead king is slaying a boar in a boar hunt, and next to the boar that's being slain, you see this little tiny curly Q tail poking out behind the tapestry. And you can see a boar-shaped, figure behind the tapestry of the boar.
Definitely smarter than the average boar to hide himself in plain sight, essentially.
Well, he is behind the tapestry, but yes, anyone who saw the curly Q tail might mistake it for the boar on the tapestry.
All right. I'll do that, and I will firmly keep my eyes on Urtok. I will not. I'm not trying to give off the air that I am ready for combat, but I'm ready for combat.
You're ready to throw down.
Yes.
So the king stands up again, and everyone kind of quiets down. It's clear that you're not supposed to bow or anything, but just to attend. And he says, "Firstly, I understand that we have some people to thank for the valiant efforts at the docks when the strange ship came ashore." And with that on cue, Vigil Fist comes
Vigil
forward.
Fist, yes.
Yep. He comes forward, and man, he is ready to go. He launches into a tale. And again, you're almost impressed by the way he doesn't lie. He doesn't say that they did everything and that you did nothing. But again, it just sounds like they did 99% of the work and you guys showed up and maybe punched a skeleton once. But nevertheless, he still is very, very complimentary of each of you, and he makes, he goes into detail of his own retinue and highlighting that Shellenshuk even fell in battle, unwilling to, eschew his penchant for non-battle, for fisticuffs. Against these burning skeletons of the undead. And he does actually mention that you, Osokai, crushed one beneath your feet. He mentions that you, Tix, that you healed Shellenshuk, which, gets several appreciative nods. And he actually does point to you, Penton, and say that you delivered the final blow to the misshapen creature that was on the deck and commanding the skeletons. And so, even though it all, again, comes back to him and his troop, he does get all of that in there. And at the end, there is a enormous burst of applause. And the king says to all of you, please come forward. And again, Morezi is there, just strangely quiet.
One quick aside. While he's rambling on for a couple of minutes, I'm going to politely and quietly mention to Skull exactly what's going on with the two people we're keeping an eye on. The fact that the one is some sort of shape-shifting cat creature, and the other one is a disguised troll. So, no, not to be alarmed, but FYI... they're probably going to try and kill the king.
So just as a point of clarification, she can't see properly. She's blind, but she sees with the help of the amulet and some magical power.
Yes.
Does
so
that
since
mean that she sees things as they are because she can't be fooled with her own eyes?
That is a really good question. And in
Hmm.
fact, when you point out what's going on, Pinson, she looks, quote unquote, looks over at them and her eyes widen and she tells you, yes, I see a man. And next to that man, I see a giant creature, which I assume is a troll.
Yep, that's the
Yeah, she
one.
is not. She is not fooled by the visual illusion at all.
Oh man, I just realized she's Daredevil.
Yeah. No, she. When I said eyes of the bat, she essentially has sonar. She has sonar in addition to advanced senses. So, yep, she is Daredevil.
Cool. Yeah.
As long
But
as Vigil Fist is not Iron Fist, we should be good.
Vigil Fist is not complaining about his privilege. So I think you're. I think
And
you're okay.
calling a Chinese woman Japanese.
I'm the immortal Vigil Fist.
That's right. I defeated the dragon, you guys. Come on.
Pay attention to me.
But he calls all of you forward. The four of y'all forward, and Skull kind of comes with you as well. But do y'all all go forward?
Oh yes.
Of course.
Tix
Who can
goes
say no?
forward and bows, make sure that he has the center of everybody's attention as he thanks Vigil Fist for his glowing report of how humble our group has been in this battle, minimizing the deeds of Osokai and Penton and myself and Merezi to the fact so that we will continue to serve the king as his humble servants and did not want to take the limelight from Vigil Fist, no matter how well deserved. We will continue to honor the king in guarding the city and the region around.
Okay. Give me a diplomacy roll.
And that is a 26.
So he claps his hands together delightedly, and his fur robe kind of ripples a little bit, and he says, "Fantastic, fantastic! We have many enemies in our kingdom, many creatures who would do us harm and are good people, and I am always honored to see one such as you to come and defend our fair city here of Masgate. I declare," and he raises his hand, and everyone goes extra silent, "that you are all friends of the king, and as such, you shall always have the ear of any emissary of the king or of the far reaches of Hyboria should anyone have cause to give you aid." And there's a big huzzah! And there's a scribe kind of scribbling on the side, and you have the feeling there'll be something more official happening later.
My
Badge.
liege.
I would like another badge.
Yes, you're gonna add to that badge collection along with your.
Penton
police
actually
one.
steps up and says, "My liege. On that note, the princess. You're familiar with the princess of Hyboria, yes?
or that had been kidnapped.
Yeah, the one I was, the one that's now gone and had the whole staff, and yes.
So, just to clarify, the princess that was kidnapped and originally had the staff of Seraphim, that was the princess of Beltrain.
Oh yes, right.
That was towards the beginning of this. It's a long time ago.
Right. It's been we're losing track of our
we need
royalty.
to.
It's 2 years ago.
If any of our loyal listeners want to start a wiki page, please do so. I beg you.
That'd be
my God,
amazing.
it would be so wonderful for me. But that was the princess of Beltrain, under the
Beltrain,
kingdom
yes.
of Beltrain. So,
right, and from the city
from
of
the
Beltrain,
city, yes, just because
province of Beltrain, from the house of Beltrain.
because apparently your DM likes things that are multiples of each other, just to be confusing.
Yeah.
Loft and loft. So this is a different kingdom. Though you, Penton,
Right.
have actually been through this kingdom when you came the first time to search for the Witch of the Lowlands.
Right. So rewind
Sure.
a second. My liege, you're familiar with the Princess of Beltrain, yes?
I have met her before in a royal convoy.
Yes, we have been tasked by her to put a stop to the plight that is plaguing all of our lands, in that the rift that has opened up once again and is spewing forth evil from it, and is as yet currently unchecked. Our princess has gone missing, and any information that you may have about her whereabouts would be most welcome.
He leans back and he goes, "It's very interesting that you say so. I think that we may come back to that in a moment, and I may be able to give you answer. For before, because y'all haven't actually sat down to eat yet, like the actual dinner has not begun yet." He goes, "Before we go forward, let us introduce our guests." And he gestures, and the doors open once again, and in come walking in the very last thing you were all expecting. Birdmen. Yeah. 5 birdmen, absolutely men who are birds, birdmen, non-humans, come walking in, each one a different plumage, each one a different color, very dramatic, looking very, very wary as they walk in, by the way.
Followed closely by their lawyer, Harvey.
That's right, Harvey Birdman, attorney at law. Harold calls out, and he says, "May we introduce the delegates of the Arakokra." I don't know if I said that right or not.
It's Eric Krokra.
Arakokra. Yeah, close enough. The Herald has trouble saying it, just like your DM. And he calls them each by name: Maya, Tide, Beast, Frost, and Gale. And each of them comes in turn. And they have come to entreat the kingdom in the war against the lizard folk. And with that, the Urtak, the Rakasha in disguise, stands up, and he gestures to the troll. And that ends Chasing Armor, number 56.
Oof.
Did you say chasing
Chasing
armor?
Chafing Armor. Chuffing
But
Schlarmer.
suddenly we're in a 90s
It's almost
movie.
like we've been recording for 2 hours straight. Almost. Not that...
Oh, we could be
Please someone write a comic strip replacing the
write
entire
Chasing
cast of
Armor
Chasing Amy
about-
with Chasing
That's right.
Armor.
Chasing the troll in the bikini underwear.
That's right. That's what it is. So we'll pick up after this and see what's going to happen with the Rakasha and the troll and these mysterious bird people, a Kokra, which I did know how to pronounce, but I suddenly forgot as I was trying to say it. I may leave in my terrible pronunciations there just for fun. Thank you all for joining in.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
As always.
I wanted to have a slightly quieter few episodes to give you all a chance to just breathe a little bit.
We lived. We lived.
Exactly. And definitely implying that things are not going to be that way going forward. So,
Yeah.
Why is it you give us this? We have a big battle and we have a little bit of downtime, and then we come up against another world-destroying evil. Thanks, DM. It's very much appreciated.
you can blame it.
We're just going from boss fight to boss
You
fight.
can blame
here.
it
Come on.
entirely on me reading X-Men coming up. Is you have to have a giant battle, and then you play baseball. That's what the X-Men do, and that's what I do. So that's where I get it from. So we'll go from there, and thank you all, and y'all all have a wonderful evening.
You too.
You
too,
Take
sir.
care.
And we will
Thank y'all.
roll with you soon. Thanks, everybody.